Okay, so good morning everyone. So we're here with our entrepreneur. So we wanted to ask you some questions. So the first one is to introduce yourself and your company.
My name is Pierfederico Ferrante, and the company's name is MaxReymond. We're in the cosmetics field, and yeah.
Okay, so what are the three key steps that you think your company had to take in your path?
The first one, I guess, what helped us the most is that we had an angel investor, so we had the funds to work on the company. The second part is about knowing people in the business, and luckily our angel investor, he used to be in the cosmetics business, so he had some contacts which fastened the way for us. I mean, it was faster for us to start. And then I guess another very important part is having a team that's willing to get the project done, and that means working over hours. That means not expecting a lot of monetary compensations at the beginning. So I guess those three ingredients made us have a good start and start the company well.
Okay, so the company value was really important for you?
Yeah, we had to find a good team and a proper basis to start everything. Otherwise, we would have just gone in the wall, I guess.
Okay, so what do you think is that now makes your company special?
There's a few things. If you look at the people and the company itself, I'd say it's the team, because we're very motivated and we're a small group and we've known each other. We're started to get to know each other, and that's the very important part on the company side. Then if you have to talk about products, there's so much to say, but obviously the fact that it's kind of a niche business, there's a gap in the market, so hopefully that gap will give us the edge for the product side.
So what was the idea that made you understand that there was a niche?
There's a few things. First of all, since the investor was in the cosmetics industry, his objective was to start again in the same industry. So that already defined which business we were going to work on. Then we just looked at what was made, what are the trends today. I'd say, for example, being as gender neutral as you can, being as sustainable as you can. Those are two. Those are two things that we looked upon, and we found there was some sort of gap in the market, and that's where we decided, okay, there's a gap. There's a doable solution, doable in the economical side, in the social side, and ecological side, and that's when we decided, okay, there's that hole. We have some sort of solution. We still have some market study to do, but it looks like the niche is here. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, what do you think would be considered one major success and one major, I don't know, fail or just fail, not major, of the company right now?
I'd say a big success would be how fast we started to get things going. Okay. So it took us like 3 or 4 months to get from having nothing, really nothing, to having a brand identity, some socials, a website, and an idea of the product we wanted to develop, and the message that we want to send to our consumers. And it took like 3 or 4 months to get all that, which seems like a lot for some people, but in fact it's pretty short. So I guess starting very fast, that was one of the special things, the successful things in the company.
Yeah. Failure, what do you think would be not failure, but just something was really hard that made you struggle or doubt?
I'd say something we had struggles with was the visibility of what the team was doing. So we're 4 people working full-time, all our extra time on the company. And everybody was working as a team, but everybody has their own, let's say, domain where they're good at. And sometimes there's been some issue with some people to actually explain what they were doing, how they were doing it, what step they were at, and so that the whole team could, have a global view of what was happening. I'd say that's a failure, because it's very important at that stage with such a small company that everybody is aware of everything. Maybe not in the details, but at least on a bigger scale, they should know what's happening. Yeah.
Okay, so brand awareness was not easy to reach, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think could be one thing that changed your lifestyle now that you are studying this part or started it?
I think, first of all, I think it's not the fact of being in a startup that changed my lifestyle. it's changing my lifestyle that made me want to be in that startup environment. So I already worked on myself a bit before, but now that I saw what it takes to study on one side and to have that project on the other side, I made some changes, such as being as organized as I can. I don't mean obsessive organized, but I mean just have a schedule, try to stick to it as much as you can. I'd say something very small, such as going to take a coffee, you write it down, you have an idea of when it's happening, so that you can schedule all your work around that, as well as classes and family events or whatever. So that's one big thing. And also setting new goals on a personal scale. For example, my goal is to be more regular and going to the gym. And for example, I found a time slot which is 6 in the morning. I go there once or twice. Once every 2 days. And if I stick to that, which sounds pretty simple, then I guess I can stick to schedules on the company, what we have to do, the meetings I have to set up, and all that stuff. So I guess working on yourself is very, very important to.
So you have to prioritize something.
Yeah.
Don't forget you.
Yeah, you have to decide, because like you get lost in the project. It's so interesting, and there's so much new stuff you're learning at such a fast pace that you might get lost into it. And at the beginning, for example, we used to work like all-nighters because it was going forward very quickly and we were enjoying it.
Okay.
But we had to take a second and say, okay, let's maybe calm down a bit, focus on our studies. My friend had to do the army. I had to work on myself on a healthy side, start cooking more healthily, and all that stuff. That's very important, I think. So people often overlook it, but I think it's very important.
So what would be a specific advice for the audience then?
The first one, as I just said, is prioritize yourself. Don't get lost in that excitement of starting the company. Another advice I'd give is, it's kind of two advices. It's work as a team, but don't hesitate to take the lead. There were sometimes, there's some sort of hierarchy also in a startup because of the one that gets the idea, then the people that come along. But don't forget that because someone has a hierarchy, he doesn't know anything. He doesn't know everything. Okay. You might have some more knowledge in some more specific fields, and I'd say something stupid. But for example, if the boss wants to start a TikTok campaign, but we don't have the material, it's going to be too clumsy and all. If you're the media marketing specialist, like tell him, let's calm down a bit, let's have a schedule of what we're going to post, and let's make it professional. So don't hesitate to give your feedback to whomever it might be, because that's very important. If you don't communicate, it's not good.
Okay, thank you so much. And then some more professional questions maybe. So how would you advise to look for a niche? Like what else would you do? Like maybe something that you said you thought about later and said, okay, maybe if I thought it at the beginning, it would have been easier.
Well, I'll go on our case. We looked for a niche in a specific business because we're told to. So that's the first part. If you're a specialist in a business, they're going to tell you, well, look for that, look for this. So that's kind of the easy part. The other way and the other things we thought of with the team that we could have worked on, which are not related to cosmetics, we learned a lot by magazines, by newspaper and news. And another thing is small talk. Like when you have people talking with each other, especially at EPFL where there's like such a broad environment, oftentimes you're gonna find yourself in a conversation where people talk about new stuff that you've never heard before. And a very important thing would be to go back home and do some research. Yeah. And if it looks interesting, do some more research. And that's how step by step you get to a niche. So research. Yeah, I think there's a lot of research and a lot of listening. Like people like to talk a lot, but it's very good to listen because that's how you discover new stuff. Okay. So yeah.
Okay, maybe you didn't already understand if your product would be high demand, really high, or just a normal scale demand, but how did you understand the kind of need that the people had, like the amount of need? So it was enough to get demand.
Yeah. So the first thing is that we're not yet 100% sure that we're going to have a high demand. We know there's a demand, but we don't know it's high yet. How do we know there's a demand on the other hand? we did some market studies. We looked at what our competitors could be, their pricing, their selling points, and what the comments or the feedback of the community was, because that's the most important part. Like, I'll give you an example. When I want to go to a restaurant, I'll go on Google Maps and look for the comments that people leave, and that's very important. And it's the same in any kind of business. What people say is very important. So we looked at that, and we saw that a lot of people, they're asking big companies to pay more attention on the sustainability side, for example, with packaging, or they're asking for natural products and to have some bigger blacklists, you know. And we see that companies, some small companies, they're taking action. Since they're smaller, they can take action faster. But we see that big companies, they're not doing it yet, and that's how we know that there's a demand, but there's no real offering yet.
Okay.
So I guess that's one way to know if it's high demand. And then another thing would be if you don't have the comments or the feedback of the community, then you go create it yourself. You go for surveys, and that sounds very basic, but that's such a huge source of knowledge. And people often, they're too scared to go in Saint Francois and talk with people or something. They should, because
so it helps.
Yeah, it helps a lot. Yeah.
Okay. And last, merely professional question: is your business a hobby for you, or is it your job? I think now.
I have a job contract, so I guess technically it's a job, but I would look at it more as a hobby. I'd give some reasons for that. First of all, being that if you look at it as a hobby, usually a hobby is something you like doing, so that's the first thing. And people don't usually like their jobs, so I don't call it a job, I call it a hobby. It gives me also more freedom to dare and to try some different things. That's very, very important on the creative side, because if you just go with the basics and stay in a square, then you're not going to have new ideas that people might like or might not like, but you have to try new ideas, so I guess that's important. And the other thing is that I'm still studying, so seeing it as a hobby, I look at it as something I do extra from my studies, so I'll try at least to focus on my studies. And as soon as I have free time, people might go play football, people might go drink. Well, I like to work on the startup and as well do some other stuff, but I look at it that way, yeah.
Okay, perfect, thank you. What would be the best human quality that you look for in a person? Not even just to hire someone, but to look for?
Communication. Straight on communication, because it's so important, and on a social aspect, on a relationship aspect, on a working aspect, that's the key. So communication is key. And by communication, I mean being able to express what you feel, but also listening. So yeah, both sides.
So maybe this would be also the answer to the next question, but what's the best quality in an entrepreneur?
The other side, listening. Okay. Yeah, listening is so important, because you might have ideas, you might feel smart, you might feel like you know a lot about your business, but you actually don't know anything. And the more you listen, the more you understand, first of all, that you don't know anything, and second of all, that there's so much small changes that you can put in your startup or your project that will affect it.
So do you usually work alone or with them? Like, do you have weekly meetings with them?
We have even daily meetings at some points. I mean, I work best with them, but when we're a small number, being too many, then it just gets confusion in, and that's not a good thing for me.
Okay, thanks. Then an anecdote that pushed you to be an entrepreneur. Like something where you stopped and said, okay, now it's time to start it.
Yeah, there's that quote that might not represent the reason why I want to be an entrepreneur, but which makes sense. Is that one where, like, if you wanna buy a house by fall, it's like a few millions, and if you do a 100,000 job for the rest of your life, it's going to take like 100 years to buy a house. Mm-hmm. So that kind of mindset, also having a personal freedom on the other side, that's what pushed me there. But then what really happened is that I started like that, and then I realized that not only there's like more financial freedom, but there's also more stimulating and mental freedom. Like, you can just go wherever you want. We started first of all by selling My first real startup started by selling face masks, which were very nice, and I had no idea I wanted to go there, but I started, and we could just experiment, like change the design, change the way we sold them, change the shape, and that was all my decisions. I mean, me and my friends' decisions, and that freedom was priceless. So I guess that's the reason why I started.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So then, someone that you look up to, like slash someone that inspires you, someone that is a hero for you or idol?
I mean, there's no one idol that like I look up to, because you cannot find someone that has everything. You're like, okay, I want to be like him. I think that's too specific. But I think if you look at different people and combine what they have to give, that's how you find your real idol. It's someone that doesn't really exist. And I mean, there's a combination of many people. There's, first of all, my father, because he's been working his ass off all his life to get us from a certain lifestyle to another. So that's something I look up to. And then there's a few entrepreneurs that, like Hodler founder, for example. Those are people that like they started from almost nothing, and they had an idea. They found a niche and they just implemented it. And there people say no to them, say that the idea wasn't good. Yet they still did it, and today they can be proud of it. And I mean, they created jobs, they created new technologies, they created some new ideas. And I mean, that's something, I guess, after a few years, I mean, when you're 60, 70 and you start going to retirement, that's something you can be proud of. So people that did something that they can be proud of, those are my idols.